everyone, my name is Lauren and welcome to another video from the Tiny Menagerie. Neocaridina shrimp are a delightful species to keep, whether you have the fancy colours or if you're just keeping the standard red cherry variety. But they don't take up very much tank space, and so you may well be wondering what fish you can keep in with them and still have the joy of watching your colony grow, and there are many options available to you. All the fish in this video are perfectly safe to keep with your shrimp, assuming that you're keeping them in a normal fish tank that has plants and mosses and places where the shrimplets will naturally hide away until they are large enough to come out in the open. In a completely bare tank that has nowhere to hide, it is best to just keep the shrimp by themselves. And I will point out that even though these are non-hunters, any fish can take a nibble at a shrimplet out of curiosity, and you may well have the odd loss. In a thriving Neocaridina colony though, this will have absolutely minimal impact on population growth. But if you do happen to be keeping very expensive Caridina species, or if you're looking to breed shrimp and sell them, then you'll probably just want to keep them in a shrimp-only tank to be on the safe side. But if it is a standard colony of shrimpies and you're not too fussed about losing the odd one, then there are a few friendly fish that could be just right for your tank. And the first fish on our list is the instantly recognisable Hillstream Loach, a curious, flat-shaped fish that has evolved to live in very fast-flowing water, although they are perfectly happy living in slower-moving water as well. These fish live by scraping algae from rocks and debris, and thus they have absolutely no interest in your shrimp at all. If they get close to one, the shrimp will just swim away. They also never venture into dense plants where they might come across a shrimplet, and even if they did, much like the adults, the shrimplet just has to move out of the fish's way and it'll be absolutely fine. As hillstreams are herbivorous species, they have no desire to hunt invertebrates, and so your shrimp are perfectly safe with them. Hillstreams also have that added benefit that they can be kept in cooler water temperatures, and in fact they don't need a heater at all as long as the house temperature doesn't fall below about 10 degrees. Which is much the same as Neocaridina shrimp. Both will live happily, side by side in a temperate tank without causing each other any bother whatsoever. The next fish on this list is actually quite a large one, and that being the Celebes Rainbow fish, which can grow up to 4 inches in length, although 2 inches is much more common in the home aquarium. These very striking looking fish are dedicated middle of the tank swimmers. They prefer to skim feed from the water surface or column rather than actively hunting for something, and they only very rarely venture down towards the substrate, and even when they do, they tend to be half-heartedly looking for eggs rather than invertebrates. That's not to say they might pick off the odd shrimplet if it gets caught out in the open, but this is going to be an absolute rarity, and as shrimplets tend to have the sense to stay hidden when there are fish around, more than enough of them will survive to be able to keep your colony growing. One thing to note though is that Celebes are a very active shoaling species. They are always on the move, exploring around the tank, and so they do need a relatively large area to live in, at least 100 centimetres long for a group of 4 to 6 of them. Which of course the shrimp will be more than happy to live in as well. And next on the list of our shrimp-friendly species is the everything-friendly corydoras, and specifically the smaller ones. I happen to have pandas in with my shrimps at the moment, but you can also keep peppers, julii, adolphi, any of the smaller cory species with shrimp without any concerns whatsoever. I would just be a tad wary of the very much larger species such as sturbi or the Venezuelans, mostly because they are slightly larger, and if I'm perfectly honest, I personally haven't kept them in with shrimp, so I wouldn't really be very comfortable recommending them until I've experienced that for myself. But I have kept many of the smaller species with shrimps, and they're all quite charming and perfectly shrimp safe. Even when the two are searching side by side on the substrate, shrimp will generally just move out of a cory's way as it's snuffling along, and the cory has no interest at all in shrimps or shrimplets. In fact, the only way cories can be an issue is that they are greedy little fish. They will happily hoover up all of the fallen food in the tank, and they can get to it very much faster than your average shrimp can. And this is certainly going to include all the different types of shrimp feed that you're likely targeting your colony with, and so it is well worth feeding those cories before you feed the shrimp, just to make sure that everybody is getting a fair share. Similar to Celebes as well, Panda Corys are a very active species and they do need to be kept in a group of at least 4 individuals, and so you're going to need to get a tank for them that is at least 80 centimeters in length. If on the other hand though, you're looking to keep your shrimp in a considerably smaller tank, then you wouldn't go far wrong looking at Harlequin Rasboras. These little fish are readily available, cheap and cheerful, and they deserve so much more recognition than they get. Their beautiful pink coloration only gets better as they age, and as they measure in at a measly 1 inch for a full-grown adult, then a group of 6 of them can very comfortably be kept in a 40-litre tank. They are active without being frenetic, exceptionally hardy and easygoing, and a general all-round great little fish. Much like Hillstream Loaches as well, they are also tolerant of cooler temperatures, and they will happily live without a heater so long as the temperature of the house doesn't get below about 15 degrees C. And as they are middle of the tank dwellers that tend to keep to open areas of the water, they will avoid very dense plants like moss, and so they're unlikely to come into direct competition with a little shrimplet, and they're also so small they're no threat at all to either immature or adult shrimp. And another absolutely tiny species that you could take a look at that is great for keeping in small shrimp tanks is the very diminutive Ember Tetra. Not quite as easy to find as Harlequin Rasboras, and you may have to search around for them a little bit, but they are well worth the effort with that lovely deep orange coloration on both the males and the females. And as they only measure in at 2 centimeters in length for a full-grown adult, and the fact that they are incredibly lazy, you can easily keep a school of up to 10 of them in a 40-litre tank very comfortably. And when I say lazy, I mean lazy. They have that classic Tetra attitude of, I'm not moving if I don't have to. And they will quite happily scull around in the same spot on the tank for a few minutes, and then move on and find somewhere else when they're going to scull around for a few minutes. And in fact, in all honesty, I think a big part of why they are so harmless is that embers simply can't be bothered to go looking for shrimp. It is much easier to just cruise around a bit in the tank waiting for the human to come and feed them. Like a lot of tetras, they can be a tad sensitive when you first get them, and they do prefer a tank that has plenty of hiding places like plants and woodwork. Even though they actually tend to stick to the open areas of the water, having those escape routes around just makes them feel that little bit safer. But once they're settled into your tank, embers are generally hardy and very easy to keep. There are lots and lots of species out there that are ideal for keeping with your Neocaridinas, and just to point out, you can keep all these fish species together as well. They will happily live with each other along with your shrimp if you're thinking about putting together a shrimp-safe community tank. Anywho though, I hope you've enjoyed this little video all about a few fishes you can keep with your shrimps. Happy fish keeping everyone, and I will see you again soon. Bye bye!